Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Coffee with Regina. And today I have my friend Karen Bonnett-Natraj. Did I get it?
You got it, girl. Thank you.
Awesome. It's sometimes those names, it's hard to pronounce, and I like it when I get them down.
I know,
I have to
right?
practice them sometimes. So let me tell you a little bit about Karen before we start chatting. Karen is a mental fitness and performance coach who is dedicated to helping driven entrepreneurs and professionals overcome mental blocks, don't we all have those, and achieve their highest potential. She has a unique mental fitness approach. You work out your body, it's time to work out your mind. Karen guides individuals to transform their inner critics to powerful allies, break free from those cycles of negative thoughts, and build unshakable mental resilience. She's got proven strategies and mindset shifts that empower her clients to unlock their peak performance in every area of life, because mindset is not just about business. Mindset is everything.
Exactly.
So let's just jump right into that. I actually had this conversation with somebody the other day, and we were talking about mindset, and we were talking about the idea of, removing all of that head stuff. And we both came to the conclusion that there will always be some head stuff.
Right.
It's a matter of how you manage it.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
That's very true. And many times I ask myself, who's that talking? Why don't you stop talking up there? But the thing that I find with most all of my clients, we are not aware of how much our talks, the mental chatter is sabotaging us. And so the main guy is, that inner critic. And how we judge ourselves, how we judge others. And it's such a quiet conversation that goes on in our head that we're not even aware of it, because it's become such a mental habit that we actually been doing this for so many years in our life, however old we are. but it's true. It's having the awareness that's key, and knowing that you're paying attention to those thoughts in our head. And I know sometimes even going to bed at night, it's like, okay, chatter, stop, and then that's where I teach my clients how to become in the present moment. And that's amazing how it'll shut off that conversation in our head. And the more we practice that, the more we shift that mindset from that negative mindset into a more positive and a calmer piece, calm, clear, focused approach.
Yeah, a lot of good info in there, because, there's one thing that really stood out to me is when you use the word, it's a habit. And
Right.
And it's true. We, just like any other habit, if you smoke, if you don't drink enough water, or whatever the habit is, we talk about it being like 21 days or more. I think it was 21, and then it was 66, and then now it's like to change a habit. When you think about that, the thoughts that are in our head, they become habitual thoughts.
Right.
And unless we stop, because the other thing that you said there is that we're not even aware that we have the thoughts. They just show up.
Right.
And, unless you're consciously aware by being present,
Mm-hmm.
how are you even going to know to do something about it?
Right. That's where, so I have a boot camp that I do, and you learn about that inner critic, but then do we realize we have 9 saboteurs that go with that dude? So
9, okay.
9. And so the thing is that, and I'm reading this current book I'm reading kind of really solidifies exactly what I teach and what I do. And it's the formula for happy, or something like that, succeed to happy. But it's, we develop these inner critics. We developed this as a child, and they were mechanisms that we used and learned to survive in our childhood. Sometimes we may have a good childhood, but still we created that inner critic because mom or dad said, no, you can't do that. Mm. No, that's not good for you. Oh, you got to do better in school. Oh, I'm not smart enough. And so those are those inner critics. And the thing is we learned all this as a kid, but that was great then. But now as an adult, they sabotage us. And so that's what the ability to realize really what our habits are doing is sabotaging us. And one of them for me, if I can share that, is the stickler is that it's on perfection. And as a child, it served me well, but as an adult, it's like it's sabotaging my relationships because you can't do this right. So you're mouthy, and so it's having that awareness. And when I learned that, it's like, oh my gosh. And so it's about creating healthier relationships. And that has to start with our mental fitness.
You mentioned that about relationships, and when we think about mindset, we think about our own mindset, and yet our mindset is critical to how we relate to other people.
Yes.
Like you said, as young kids, we build that. As a young kid, little personal story that I don't think I've ever shared in the internet world
Cool.
is I was not the best student in school. And I really kind of hated school. I was an outcast because we had moved to where we lived and where I did most of my grade school when I was 7. And so I was kind of the outcast because everybody else that was there had grown up all together. And so I was like the one that was different. And so I just didn't want to be in school. It wasn't until the 7th grade. I always sat in the back of the room. And it wasn't until the 7th grade when my mother and my father were really getting on me about my grades and how terrible my grades were that they realized that I need glasses because I can't see a thing on the board. It's no wonder. However, I didn't look at it that way. I didn't look at it as it's not just this idea of being the outcast. It's not just that. There was actually a physical thing going on where I just didn't even really think about it. I didn't really care that I couldn't see the board. And so
Right.
I just didn't really pay attention. I was in my own little world in the back of the room. And so when they came in, they're like, your grades need to be better. And she doesn't pay attention in class. The teacher's notes on the old report cards. She doesn't pay attention in class. Da, 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 da. And they're like, well, what is the matter? What is the matter? And I was like, nothing. And yet it was literally this thing. And so I built this story of, well, you're just not smart enough.
Exactly.
It's okay. You're just not smart enough. That's okay. Just go do your thing. It's all right. And as I got older, even getting into high school, going into high school, I had D averages in the 2 main classes I had to have C or better to graduate, history and English. And I literally went into both classes, and it wasn't because I didn't know this stuff. It's like at that point, from 7th grade up until 12th grade, I just decided that I'm not smart enough and I just don't want to do this stuff. However, I knew deep down, this stuff. And so I actually made a deal with both of the instructors that if I got an 85 or better on both of the finals, that they'd give me a C- and pass me, which I did on both of them. Of course, my parents were like, where was that the whole rest of the time you were in school?
Nice.
Then I go off to college, and literally in college, because I went there on purpose and took the classes that I wanted to take, I was high honors all through college. So that shifted my mindset at that point because I had this story as a kid that I was like, well, I kept telling people, well, I'm not smart enough for that. I don't know enough about that. That's okay. And I kept saying, that's okay. It wasn't that. It was the story that I created. And we do that. We create this head garbage.
Yep.
So when you have something that's that ingrained in your brain, it started when you were a kid.
Right.
What do you do to start working it out?
So honestly, the boot camp I have takes you through a process. And you were talking about how we change habits. So it takes 6 weeks to change a habit. But then just like physical fitness, you don't work out for 6 weeks and go, oh, I'm good, I'm fit, and stop. It's the same thing with mental fitness, is that the 6 weeks you change a habit. And so you really learn deep about how you judge yourself. You were judging yourself as a kid. I'm not smart enough. I was the same way. I love math, but my dad took me to remedial math after school. And I'm like, I get math. I could do word problems at a 6-year-old that nobody could solve. And so it's creating that story. And no matter what, we can say it's okay, but still there's that quiet voice in our head still telling us we're not smart enough. And then so you learn about that. Then you learn about one of the 9 saboteurs, and we all have a top saboteur. My top one is a stickler. It's about perfection, and my next one is going to be the restless one. I'm always bouncing from one thing to another, thinking, well, this is okay. I have a lot of energy, but I'm not really serving myself well. And then we learn there's 5 sage powers that we can learn how we can empathize with ourselves, that we can drop back into our. You remember as a kid, we would just be so curious about stuff and explore. Oh my gosh, that was so much fun as a kid. Can you bring that back in adult life? Why not? And then how we can navigate and integrate good, healthy conversations with people that we love and friends and people we want to be friends with, and even our coworkers. How you can have actually really good conversations. And conversations isn't about me talking and talking and talking and talking. It's about me listening. And bosses and parents and teachers and anybody, we need to listen to the other person we're talking to, hear what they're saying, and be able to reverberate that back and give their own idea. So the idea that no matter in any situation, another person who you may label as difficult, they're 10%, something about their conversation, they're 10% right. You got to find that 10%. And then honoring your life, look at your life in 5 years, where do you want to be? And then bringing conversations, and then practicing techniques that bring you back into the present moment. So we practice, and I call them like PQ reps. They're positive quotient reps. And it's just take two minutes. If you took 2 minutes 3 or 4 times a day, you wouldn't believe how much you're shifting your brain. And so this is not just like woo stuff. It's based on neuroscience. It's based on that positive psychology. It's based on performance science. It's based on cognitive psychology. And the neuroscience that backs this, well, this program gives you the tools to implement it. And so it's simple. And I have to say that there's so many times where now my habitual way of showing up, and I just don't even think about it, but I kind of wow myself. And a lot of it's with my husband. We had a situation just a week ago, and I know it was something that if he said it, 2 years ago, I would have been triggered and my saboteur would have showed up. But I responded in a different way, and it's like, wow, I just sort of like I did my own wow to myself. And it's like, now that's my new habit, as opposed to showing up in my saboteurs and my inner critic. But it's so interesting how deeply ingrained it is in our amygdala, in that fear-based brain.
Right. And so I have to ask, so can you tell us what the 9 saboteurs are?
I can.
Yeah, just go through like 1 through 9.
I'll go 1 through 9. So the pleaser. That's somebody who always pleasing everybody else and doesn't do it, and then starts sabotaging themselves. The hyperachiever. Typical leaders are this way. Even athletes are this way. They have to, I'm going to be happy when. I'm going to be happy when. I'm going to be happy when. And then the avoider. So avoiding difficult conversations, avoiding situations, and then regretting it. And then the hypervigilant. Oh, so this is going to go bad. This is going to go bad. They keep themselves so small because they're so afraid. Oh, this is going to go bad. And then the restless. That's me, because I bounce from one thing to another and it's not serving me. And so it's having that awareness. And then my stickler, that dude of perfection. And then there's a controller. I'm sure we can all identify how we might want to be. You're going to do it my way. You're going to do it my way. You're going to do it my way. We're not listening. And then the victim and the hyper-rational. So there's your dudes.
Right. And when you say that, as you were saying that, I was thinking about how much from limiting beliefs helps to trigger that stuff. And,
Sure.
Just where you are, where you're at. And you mentioned earlier about being present. And that's the one thing that I learned over the years. I'm actually certified in positive psychology and some other things as well. it took me a while to catch on to it. Even when I was doing my positive psychology training, I don't think I was 100% there yet.
Right.
I still had a lot of, we'll just call it head trash going on. And it was more of what you said. It was more of being aware. Like you said, with you and your husband last week, it was oh, I knew, I knew the trigger was there. Because I'm aware, because my habit is now paying attention,
Right.
I felt it coming up. So I was like, yep, don't go there.
But even so, it's kind of like that's more now how I show up. And so it's paying attention to most people are showing up in a fear-based inner critic saboteur world. And now I show up more in a sage perspective.
Right. And it takes training. So
It does.
like you said, it's really based on neuroscience. You're retraining your brain.
Exactly.
And if you want to retrain anything, I mean, even, physical, if you're a physical athlete, then, like you said, it's like you can't work out for 6 weeks and then say, okay, I'm good for the rest of my life.
Right.
I'm fit, I'm in shape. It's like,
Right.
no, you have to keep training over and over and over again and keep that mental awareness so that when something does come up, when you're like, all right, I'm catching that trigger, and before a word comes out of my mouth, before I choose to respond, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to take a second and go, where's this coming from? And, and the more you do that, like you said, it becomes that habit. And so now you just automatically react that way instead. So you've literally changed the neurons in your brain to react differently.
Exactly. Love that comment. Neurons in our brains, and we don't even think about that, right? We don't even realize how many neurons we have in our brain that are showing up this way. The other thing is that, oh, okay, so I took your, 7-week boot camp and then you stop. Life is a journey. And do you want to take that journey with, the sage, the love, the peace and calm in your mind, or do you want to take that journey with a constant fear-based mindset? With my, I didn't realize you were a certified positive psychology. That's amazing. So I'm also certified in the positive intelligence. So that's part of, what his studies, Shirzad's studies has taken in. And when I learned about the stickler, I realized how much I was really, so we're just going to talk about the kitchen. It's like, can't you just put it in the dishwasher? It's a negative comment. It's mouthy. It's defiant. But then when I learned that, and then I kept my mouth shut, then I realized, holy cow, all that crap going on in my head. It was so strong. And then I realized what it was doing to my body. So those thoughts we create, even though we're blasting it out to somebody else, it still impacts our own health. And so when I stopped that, then the stickler, I could almost feel like the stickler left. But reality, it never totally leaves. But it more often than not, I have the awareness around it.
Yeah, it's because you're training yourself. The new habit is to be aware of what's going on.
Right.
So before it comes out of your mouth, and before something or some reaction or some emotion, some negative emotion pops in, you stop and are aware of it. And that's the way you train yourself. Because, like I said at the beginning, the conversation I had the other day was, we were talking about that. And we were talking about, I have a little thing that I do about removing limiting beliefs and stuff like that too. And the reality is, you never fully remove them. There's always going to be something there, because it's part of you. It's part of your essence. And the deal is yes, you can be aware of them and acknowledge them, so that when the trigger comes up, when something happens, you react differently. And that's really what it all comes down to. It's about, how do I actually want to react to this situation?
Can I offer a word?
Sure.
Instead of react, respond.
Respond. Mm-hmm.
And so it's, how do we respond in life? And if we realize that all of those negative thoughts, how much it hurts us, me, that as long as I work on me, the world out there will change because I've changed. And it's a good thing, because now the world is more positive of the people that I surround myself with, and I'm showing up more in a positive way. So, yeah.
Yep. No, I love that, because, you just reminded me, I'm also Jack Canfield Success Principle certified.
Nice.
And principle number 1, 100% responsibility, and the concept of E plus R equals O, and the R stands for response.
Yeah.
That's actually what the R stands for. It's the event plus your response equals the outcome. And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about, that's where your power lies. Your power lies in that response. So what do you want the outcome to be? Do you want your husband to be pissed off at you because you barked at him about putting something in the dishwasher? Or do you want to, have, a nice, easy relationship where it's like, oh, can you do this for me? And then where it's, it's a nicer, instead of barking and stuff like that. It's how you respond, that response, to get the outcome you're looking for. And I don't think we actually realize a lot of times that we have control of our outcomes.
Exactly. Can I share a little story? Because what you
Absolutely.
said about my husband. So this is what happens in relationships. So my stickler would show up. I'd bark at him, just like you said. That's a great word. I love that. And his avoider would show up. So he wouldn't attack back. He'd leave. So that avoider is not taking the confrontation. He could can't you say it a little bit different? Something. So there's a dance of the saboteurs that show up in relationships. And so that was a stickler and avoider reaction. So
I love that. This the dance. And you said it earlier. You were like, the mindset, it's not just you, it's the other person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you get those two reactions together, it's like, okay, so are they coming together? Are they, are they polarized, or are they, bouncing apart, going, okay, I'm out of here. It's
right.
like, you know what? You know,
I've had enough of her.
You're having a bad day. I'm out of the kitchen now.
And then too, it's, as we become more aware, it's the hardest ones, the hardest challenge for ourselves is our closest relationships, right? Mm-hmm. And I do realize that with my husband. It's like, he'll start a conversation and I'll come in with kind of a saboteur. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go that way. I want to use the innovate power and do a yes, and. Yes, I hear you. And, so it's like, and it's catching ourselves on when we are in sabotage. And then, kind of going over the scenario, but realizing, becoming more aware of what's a better way to show up. And it's teaching. So.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, it's all about paying attention, right?
Yeah.
Paying attention to what's going on around you, paying attention to what's going on inside of you, and understanding that you do have the choice on how you choose to respond. And,
right.
And instead of, the knee-jerk reaction that would normally happen if you're not paying attention to what's going on in your head, that knee-jerk reaction just automatically comes on. I mean, think about driving down the highway, right? And somebody cuts you off. I mean, you instantly get, you're mad, and you might do some little finger gestures or whatever it is that you do. I mean, there's stuff that we do that after we do it, we're like, did that actually serve me in any way? I mean, the person who cut me off is long gone now. Number one is like, they don't care. They don't care that I'm here. They're here. And now I'm in a mood because I've created this irritated mood that the person who cut me off, they're long gone. I'm not another thought in their mind ever for the rest of their life.
Right.
And yet here I am stewing over the fact that I got cut off.
Yeah.
It's like, we have a choice. We can choose our response. I mean, it happens, you get cut off on the highway, and I do it. My initial reaction is usually, seriously? And then I'm like, all right, let it go. And I immediately let that stuff go now. In the past, not so much, until I learned to actually be aware.
Right. Yeah, that's a great scenario. You can get up in the morning and the first foot on the floor is you stepped on something. You can start your day off in a trigger of saboteurs the rest of your day. But if you wake up and you step on something, it's like you can bring more awareness around that. And it's like, oh, you can bring a sage perspective into that. But what a great analogy and the fact that, yeah, you're a mess the rest of the day. It isn't them. And it reminded me of a story I heard of a dad in the airplane with his unruling children.
Mhm.
We don't know their story. So how can we judge them? It's a story that we're telling ourselves in our head. And then
Right.
how do you carry that? And then you go to work and you're in a board meeting and you're already mad. So anybody triggers you, you're going to respond to that. On and on and on. It just compounds. So what if you showed up happy?
Exactly. What if you chose to show up
Right.
happy?
Exactly.
How would that be for you? Wouldn't you rather be happy than irritated, and have that cortisol and all those those bad chemicals going in your body that have you all stressed out and all this kind of, wouldn't you rather be like calm and happy and good with everything?
Exactly.
You have a choice,
Yeah.
and it's all in your head. So how you choose to consider that. So I love that idea that you've got this boot camp where people go in, and it's like you learn about all this stuff. So by the time they're done the boot camp, now they're more consciously aware of what's going on. My cat does that all the time too. I got one of those too. So we are almost out of time, and I want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you and what you've got going on. So I don't know if you have. I actually didn't. We didn't chat about. Do you have any like freebies that you give away? Do you have a place for people to go, a Facebook group, or anything like that? What can you share with us?
So my email is themindfulathletecoach.com, and as well as my website. I do have a workshop coming up next Wednesday, January 29th. Is free. And I'm going to be, it's Unleash Your Inner Champion.
Ooh.
And if I can share that, that would be super awesome.
Unleash your inner. So did I spell that right?
Mindfulathletecoach.com. Yep.
All right. So.
Oh, the email is the Mindful Athlete Coach. That's my website. I always forget this, is at gmail.com.
All right. So the Mindful Athlete Coach at gmail.com is the email. This is the website that we've got up here on the screen right now. And then we've got Unleash Your Inner Champion. How do people find out information about that? Because that sounds phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. It's an amazing thing. So how can I send you my landing page, and then you can
throw it in the private chat, and I'll put it right here on the screen. If you want to type it into the private chat, because that is something that I think pretty much everybody needs.
Yeah.
So over on the right hand side, you'll see private chat. If you toss it in there, I'll copy it and whoop. I just lost her. She hit the wrong button. That's okay. Hopefully she'll be right back. because Karen has been the most amazing guest, because you know what? We do have a lot of head stuff, and I'm stalling because I'm hoping she bounces right back in. And it is all about being aware and getting the information in there so that you don't mess up your head, right? So Karen, I was like, okay, I know she hit the wrong button, so
I did. Okay. I was trying to get the link to that, and it bumped me out. So how can I do this?
Can you tell me the link? I'll see if I can type it in.
It's in. I can't. I have a landing page.
I'll tell you what. Can you put it in a Facebook message to me, and I'll copy it from there.
I can do that. That'd be great, because I clicked on bookmarks and then I made me disappear.
That's okay. So for everybody who's watching, I will put the link. So Karen's going to get me that link, and I'm going to put it underneath the video on all 3 platforms, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube.
Awesome.
So that you can check this out, because I can't think of anything better than to go get your head, in the right place, because, we talk about a mindset for success, the life mindset. It's just so, so important. And we work out bodies and that kind of thing. We take care of our health and that kind of thing. A lot of times we neglect our mental health. And really, I mean, isn't that like, at the end of the day, when we think about it, sure, we need our physical health and stuff, but our mental health kind of controls everything.
Exactly.
Like you said, you get stressed out, you have stuff, it affects your physical body. So, I mean,
Right.
isn't mental health like everything?
It is everything. And I'm so passionate about it. When I fell into this journey of my own, it's like, this has got to help. I'm more dedicated to help people turn into their inner sage and shift that mindset.
And I love how you call yourself the mindful athlete coach. So we're going to go work out your mind.
Exactly.
I absolutely love that. So
thank you.
We are out of time. I will make sure I get all of these links underneath the live streams. Perfect. On all the platforms.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, we could probably talk about this for hours. This
I know, right?
Such a great conversation.
Thank you, Regina. This was a blast, and I apologize for bumping out, and at least I can come back in.
I figured you'd be right back in.
Thank you so much.
I just kept the conversation going, figuring you would be right back. So it was all, we're all good.
Okay,
good. So with that, excuse me. With that, we'll close up for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for Coffee with Regina, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Thank you.